Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to Always Off Brand, where we try to simplify e-commerce, I guess, throw a whole big bag of fun and just, screw around most of the time. I'm one of your hosts, Scott Oshman, Scotty O. Joining me today, always, and just from the horse farm out in North Carolina, it's Haley Brucker. Haley Brucker in the news.
Good morning.
Our star guest co-host, once again, Summer Jubileer. Can you believe it, Haley? She's on vacation once again, pinch hitting and a former guest, a listener, part of the Faithful 48. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Ash McMullen.
Good morning. Thanks for having me co-host with you.
Fantastic. She also was part of the agonizing she had to put up with me trying to figure out questions and topics for our guest today. You're going to see the guest in the episode here, but we got a doozy. We're going to limit the chit chat, but I do have Haley. Do you have any stories? Ash, you got any stories?
Oh, I've always got stories, but let's see what Ash has. I mean, I live on a farm.
Aside from this week being Walmart deals and Target Circle and Prime big deals.
Deal days.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. What other good stories?
That's okay.
Well,
I'm cutting it.
You survived it.
I
survived crashing the tractor this week.
Oh, well, that's always good. I think there's probably metaphors crashing a tractor, Amazon big deal days. I'm sure there's something there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think they're both as risky. They both are stressful. But we survived it, Ash. You survived it. You did great. You have a smile on your face this morning. Scott, you survived. I know you saw. Yeah, it's not a big deal.
I don't really. I don't have enough big enough. It was fine. We did great. Where we went for it, we did about double. I talked to Ash before we recorded, and she, of course, blew it out of the park. way over budget. Blah blah blah. Superstar. Ho hum. She's amazing.
While live in office too. I've never been in office when a tentpole event has been going on, and we were sitting in one of the conference rooms talking, and someone said, "Oh, I bought this for Prime Day." I'm like, "Oh my God, I totally forgot to shop for myself." I've been so absorbed with everything else going on. So I got my new headphones.
Well, those look fantastic, by the way. If you're don't know, we're on YouTube. By the way, a couple housekeeping things just while I go in. I had a fun story last night. My wife finally calls me as she's driving home, and she's like, "Hey, there's some thumping on the road, on the wheels on the car." I'm like, "Well, that does not sound good." So it's about 4:00 in the afternoon. I'm a huge sportsaholic, if you don't know, and my Seattle Seahawks run Thursday Night Football. So that started at 5 my time, and I'm like, okay. And so I need the car, so I drive down to our little discount tire, and the guy's like, of course, it's all-wheel drive. It's Subaru Ascent because I live in Seattle, so we have to drive Subarus. We drive nothing else here. Same thing with Colorado and Vermont. And so the guy's like, "Sure, yeah, it's trash. Your other one's trash. You need 4 new tires." Of course I did. I knew it. I was already walking up like, this is going to be a fat bill and whatever. But most importantly, I'm not even worried about the money. I have a game to watch.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so I look at the guy, he goes, "Yeah, it's going to be done at 6. It's like 4:20, 4:30. I'm like, well, this is a problem. I mean, do I Uber home? This is a thing. But then I look to my right and I see the Thrasher Corner Pub, which I've driven by hundreds and hundreds of times. I've never been in. So I basically flipped my little attitude around, Haley Nash.
I'm so proud of you.
What? I'm going to go into Thrasher's Corner Pub and I'm going to have myself a cold beverage, watch the game. I did order up some delicious potato skins, which is a rare treat. And there you go. There's my story. It turned it. I have 4 beautiful new tires, and I got to hang out at a great sports bar.
Well, you're going into the rainy season, Scott. You've got to have those good tires.
I know.
It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. How are the tractor's tires? How is the tractor?
Yeah,
and how are you?
I told you I survived. I'm all good. The tree I hit is halfway gone, but whatever.
All right. The quick housekeeping is basically just check out our archives. We're over 200 episodes, which I don't post the episode numbers. I don't really care about that. As far as I'm concerned, you listen. It's great. But we have some exciting things coming up on the Quickfire Podcast Network. Not only is the Always Off Brand, but I encourage everybody, and you'll start hearing little blips in the show with Brain-Driven Brands, hosted by Sarah Levinger, which is the psychology of marketing. It's produced by yours truly, producer Scotty. And it's a lot of fun. So she's hysterical. She's brilliant. It's fascinating. So that's the update. Now, all of that said, talk about exciting and wonderful. I am crazy about this guest. She has got a book. Well, hold on. Let me start the music. See if I can do this. See if engineer.
Scott
Yes.
is gonna fan club. This
I'm
girl,
gonna.
this woman is amazing.
Okay, so I add her. So I'm going to add her now. I'm going to add her back. Here she is. Now the viewer sees her. Listener, hold on. Here we go. I'm going to just, it is like we say, we don't do big intros here because you got Google machine and LinkedIn, but here we go. You got to wait till the, oh yeah. Oh, there it is. There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, could be one of the biggest guests we've ever had on the Always Up Brand podcast. Not only is she, there's so many awards. They start with P's, Pulitzer. I don't even know. From the Wall Street Journal, she's written an unbelievable book. Dana Mattioli, ladies and gentlemen, the Everything War. She joins us now. Dana, I'm so thrilled. We are just so excited to have you. We have so much to talk about. Oh my God.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the kind intro with custom music. I mean, what more could you ask for?
That's what we do here. That's what we do here. Every guest deserves it. I was going to start this whole thing, and Ash, God, we're on the phone last night. We're agonizing over. I was actually going to email you. My email of the show, the topics was, I don't know what to ask you. You've been on 700 programs, which is amazing. And I don't think we can come up with anything different. But I wanted to try to start this. First of all, let's just start, and then I have a clip I'm going to play to go into the first topic. Talk about when you went to your publisher. I think this is fascinating. We're all in the Amazon ecosystem, but the book is basically you've been an investor reporter for years, the Wall Street Journal. You covered Amazon. Go listen to all the great stuff. She tells the whole story about her life. What I'm more interested in, how did you pitch this book, and how did the publisher go, oh, I think you're onto something here?
Yeah, it's funny. Weirdly, I never thought like, oh, a publisher might be scared of doing this book. Like, I was like completely naive to the fact that
Never crossed your mind.
even though I'm writing a book about Amazon being a monopoly, like the first place they were a monopoly is like book sales, right? So funny enough, I didn't have, I didn't think I'd be writing a book. I had a series of investigations on Amazon at the Wall Street Journal where I work. I've been there 18 years. And one of them in particular was the impetus for Congress to call on Jeff Bezos to testify for the first time in his life, something that Jeff was not thrilled about.
None of those guys were. You could
Right.
tell they were real uncomfortable.
And during those hearings, my articles were repeatedly brought up by different Congress people and cited in the testimony, and he had to respond to a lot of it. And at that point, I started hearing from a bunch of book agents saying, I think we have something here. We've been watching the hearings. We've been reading your work. Would you want to do a book? So I thought about it, and it was appealing. I mean, I had this body of work that I had done for the Wall Street Journal. And so we decided to, it was the middle of like COVID lockdowns that I wrote the proposal. And then we pitched it to all of, there's 5 big book publishers. And can I tell you, in not any of one of those meetings did any of the publishers express any fear about going big on a book like this. They were all super supportive. I think a lot of them had lived it and they wanted to see this book put out in the world.
What? We're always, this is me. I'm here for petty, Dana. I'm here for petty. I'm here for a little, let's stick it to the man. I'm here for it.
And I have to say, Little Brown has been amazing. My editor on this book was amazing. And they never shrunk back. They never, were afraid of poking the bear and getting like shadow banned on Amazon's website. And, because there's been a history of that I chronicle in the book where the publishers piss off Amazon and then Amazon hides their new releases from Stephen King or Malcolm Gladwell and tries to screw with them. Right. So not once did it come up. And I'm actually proud of the publishing industry for that. They really had balls of steel.
When you were writing this, did you ever have a moment where you were like, oh, I can't go further with this. Maybe this is not a good idea. I gotta stop. And if so, like, how did you get through those moments and kind of keep going with this?
For me, it was more the opposite. I wrote this proposal during COVID lockdowns, and then I was pregnant with my son, and I thought it would be too much to have a newborn baby and a book and working full time at the Wall Street Journal. So I decided like, maybe this is not the right time for this. And I backed out of the deal. And then it was more like I could not get it out of my head. And I just kept reporting it out. I remember going on walks with my son when he was like a newborn in Prospect Park where we live, and calling my sources and like sitting down on benches and writing my notes down. Right. So it was something that I just couldn't stop reporting because I think it's such a big story. It's like a story that's never been told, that I was surprised had never been told, because, you know, the reason I got into this at the Wall Street Journal was I was the M&A reporter, and I saw Amazon wreaking havoc on industry after industry after industry. It was the most feared company in corporate America, and it won every time it won in every new sector. And no one was exploring like how they always seem to win. And I had a feeling they had their fingers on the scale. And then what I found when I dug into this is like so much bigger than that.
Yeah, we can go through. We're going to go hit the highlight stories that, again, everybody has their own perception of what meaning. And just, you know, as our listeners know, like, I'm in deep. I lived through this. So you're telling these stories and I'm just like, yeah, I was there. Yeah, none of it surprised me, unfortunately. I mean, it's such bad behavior. And then I grew up selling into retail in 95 through 99. I was involved working for large manufacturers and brands who had different. And again, this is not excusing the behavior, but let's just be real. Walmart did a lot of the same things. The tactics were different. At the time, there was no internet, but they were not exactly kind and wonderful to their vendors and manufacturers and factories. And there was a lot of reasons for that. No excuses, not excusing it at all. But I think I wanted to start with Jeff Bezos, because I think you start the book with just such a really cool story that I don't think a lot of people understand, and especially the mass and broad audience, of who this cat is and how he came to be, right? And I thought I saw this clip and I wanted to start this conversation with this and see if this works.
Given the decades of wisdom that has built up in the business world, investors, it sounds like you're saying, are making a big speculative bet if they're investing in your company's stock.
Well, I think all internet companies, the stocks are incredibly volatile, and but
even long term,
long term, I believe that it's very easy to predict that there are going to be lots of successful companies born of the internet. They're going to have very large market caps and so on. I also believe that today, where we sit, it's very hard to predict who those companies are going to be. So you can make bets on these things. And I think that Amazon.com, if we're not one of those important, lasting companies born of the internet, we will have nobody to blame but ourselves, and that we will be extremely disappointed in ourselves. But there are no guarantees.
All right. That's taken from July 1999. And that sets up who this cat is. So can you tell the story of why this guy is such just, what did I say in my questions? Why has he been so savage? He is just an absolute savage.
Well, I think Jeff, when he tells his origin story, he cherry picks a lot and he leaves something big out. First, you have to remember that he was not like this wonky computer engineer in Seattle. He was a hedge fund employee in New York, in the world of hedge funds, where arbitrage is what it's known for, sharp elbows, being really alpha. And the idea for Amazon wasn't his. He steals it from his boss, David Shaw. He works for this company called D.E. Shaw. David Shaw was a computer programmer, understood the powers of the internet at a time when 3% of Americans had ever been online. And he tells Jeff, can you research selling things on the internet for me? Because maybe we'll do this at D.E. Shaw. And Jeff sets off on his on his boss's dime and researches this huge project and likes what he sees and says, I'm quitting and I'm going to do this. So there's that. And then, he, from the get-go, is this hedge fund guy with the arbitrage, and he figures out there's ways to game the system, all legal, but really shrewd. And the first one is where he's going to locate this company. And he understood the ins and outs of tax law.
That's what I think is so. You outline this in the book, and it just, again, I just like not yet. Like,
so let me give you a sense for how well he understood this. He toyed with the idea of locating Amazon on a federal Native American base because there's no taxes. And obviously the government said no to that. Like there's no reason for you to be there. So then he set out to figure out like a different way to get around this. And he locates the company in Seattle, partly because there's a lot of tech talent there. Microsoft's there, other companies, but also it's a smaller state than California. And he would only have to charge sales tax in the place of his nexus or his location, and it would be Washington State. And then from there, they come up with this genius idea to say that their warehouses where they're shipping us all their goods are not really their properties. This is, a separate entity. So until 2017, in some states, he wasn't collecting sales tax. And that just created this crazy playing field across retail where other companies could not compete with them on prices. Because if you're Sears, and this is a real example, if you're selling a Sony television at Sears and, the MSRP is $500, Amazon could charge $500 flat for a lot of states. Well, Ron Boir, who was the president of Sears at the time, told me they would have to shave off 8% from their price of that TV, have a 0% margin just to stay competitive. And it created this massive compression and a race to the bottom in prices. And, Sears isn't really around anymore.
No, I mean, it's like every day was a Labor Day sale. The Labor Day sales, it's like, hey, no tax on the Labor Day sale, for furniture. It's like that. And it's so true, Dana. I remember I was working with all these brands, right, who were if they were based in a state where they did not have a warehouse. So internally, Amazon employees had red states and green states. And they literally, and I have friends of this, they literally could not bring their cell phone at the time, BlackBerry, whatever it was. They could not communicate. They couldn't bring their computer to that state if they were vacationing. And we could not have a lot of people to the manufacturer's home side. They wanted to do a big presentation, all this stuff. So yeah, it was red state, green state until 2017. The great, was it one of the Dakotas, the big lawsuit there?
Yeah, but think about, the rest of the people that Jeff is competing against. If you're Macy's, you have a physical store in many of those states, right? You can't claim that you don't have a presence, and that just really decimated a lot of retail.
I was most shocked by the Alexa fund. I think when I was reading this, because I didn't have that kind of knowledge. I just kind of saw them as they came out, and one of my favorite parts in your book was about the Whoop device, because one of them won this battle in the war. And can you talk a little bit about that and kind of if you think Amazon might hold a grudge that like they won this battle, is the war greater, and could they still be trying to develop something to be in the wearable space?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So there's a chapter in the book where I detail how Amazon has used its mergers and acquisitions apparatus and its VC arm, the Alexa Fund, as corporate espionage, essentially. And it's a really uncomfortable situation for founders or CEOs that are meeting with Amazon, because Amazon's the number 1 or 2 company by market share in like 12 different industries. So you kind of have to come to the table to them, even if they're competing directly with you and oftentimes winning. And the chapter gets into how Amazon has this pattern, and I had more examples of this than I could write a whole book just on this.
Yes.
Where CEOs would go to Amazon for funding or for deal talks under the auspices of a deal. And Amazon would mine them for information, their product roadmaps, their internal figures, their client list, their proprietary technology, their patents, everything that companies go to great lengths to keep secret, right? And they bring the heads of Alexa to these meetings, the heads of AWS, the heads of all the competing business units at Amazon that could stand to learn a lot from those meetings. And then what would happen is, after months of meetings where these companies showed Amazon the blueprint to doing everything that they're doing, Amazon would ghost them and then announce the same product under an Amazon label. And in a lot of cases, those companies don't exist anymore. I had grown men cry to me on the phone telling me about their experiences. This was really honestly awful.
Yeah, the Alexa guy, one of the first stories in the book with the gentleman who was so excited. He'd got this voice thing, right?
Oh, Ubi, I know.
I felt terrible. He
might have created Alexa.
Oh my God, I just want to crawl through the book and give him a hug. I just felt terrible for the guy.
That one breaks my heart. The Nucleus story breaks my heart.
The Nucleus one was,
Oh. And these are well-meaning people that, had some reservations, but they were assuaged. And, what I found is that Amazon actually had a protection in place that these founders didn't know that they were signing away. something called a residuals clause when they met with Amazon that said that anything that Amazon employees in these meetings retained in their memory could be used by Amazon without legal penalty. And that was just like galling to me. So you get through this chapter where you see, CEO, founder after founder just copied, stolen their ideas, corporate espionage taking place on behalf of Amazon. But I love the last anecdote that Ash referenced, a company called Whoop. Because these truly are David versus Goliath stories. And you could see in real time how Amazon is crushing innovation. It's putting startups out of business, and there's a penalty to be paid just by meeting with them. But this company, Whoop, it's a Boston-based company, and it makes this wearable device that tracks it tracks a lot of different metrics. A lot of professional athletes like LeBron James wear it, and it goes on your wrist, and it's a watch, but also has like heart rate, steps, but more advanced sorts of things. And it's kind of a premium price point. And in 2018, the hardware space is very hard. It's really hard to go it alone unless you're inside of a giant company because you go through a lot of money. In 2018, they weren't doing so well financially, so they had to have this meeting with the Alexa Fund. And Will Ahmed, the CEO of Whoop, I spoke with him for the book, and he said he was like a little bit wary going in. He didn't like some of the lines of questioning. He found out that information he shared with the Alexa Fund was then shared by the Alexa Fund with the heads of the devices team, which seemed like a clear breach, right? And then, in 2020, Amazon announces something called the Halo, which is what Will describes as a direct copy of the Whoop, but at a much lower price point. And to add insult to injury, the day it's announced, an Amazon engineer who worked on it put out a tweet saying, "Whoop, there it is," kind of like rubbing it in their faces. And Will is livid. The Whoop people are livid. His investors in Whoop call him and say, they kind of express their condolences, like, nice working with you, but Amazon's going to, decimate you. And but Will's kind of he's kind of a fighter. And he says, we're not going to stop. And they come out with their next model of Whoop. And they actually even put in their mainframe, they inscribe into it like something, what's the exact word? Something like, you could try to copy us, but we will win. Ash, do you have it in front of you?
Can I read it? Yeah. Can I read it from your book? From specifically for Amazon on the device's circuit board, quote, "Don't bother copying us. We will win."
So that was an added cost for them to inscribe that. And the only people who are ever going to see that are people that are breaking apart the product piece by piece to try to reverse engineer it, right? Yeah. And interestingly enough, Amazon closed the Halo device later on. It didn't sell well. It wasn't as good. It was, something that they shut down, and Will got the last laugh the day that they announced that it was closing. He, sort of tweeted a peace sign emoji, sort of like good riddance. So at least we had like one sort of, happy, uplifting story in that section, because it was brutal to report, I'll tell you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you really felt for all the companies that came prior. Like my heart broke about the Doppler Labs with what basically was like a gentleman's handshake at this really nice dinner, and then
popping champagne.
Yeah, and then Amazon launches the Echo earbuds. Mm-hmm. It's like,
yeah, this is time again. I mean, it happens over and over again. I don't get caught up in the owned brands or where they're taking. Now, again, that was a big part of the book, and we'll get to antitrust and Lena Khan and everything, and part of it, right? And a lot of your reporting on them using 3P data, but how they were doing it and said they weren't doing it, and then you caught them red-handed with what'd you have, a little breakfast, a little coffee? I wanted to know when you handed over the documents to that guy. And, the source, so to speak, gotcha. You guys did you have a scrambled eggs? I'm really interested in the meal.
I do remember what I have, because I was like really nervous going into that meeting. I had a cappuccino, a skim cappuccino, and then they only had coffees. No one ate because I think everyone was just so angry.
Okay, so you how many people did you talk to, and how many pieces of documents for this book?
I spoke to 600 people, including many, many people at Amazon, former Amazon, 17 of Jeff Bezos' direct reports called the S team. Then I had hundreds of pages of internal documents. Like I said, when you're writing about Amazon, because it's a contentious company that comes out swinging, you need to be bulletproof. You need to have the receipts. And as my editor said, I went a little overboard.
One of the big things that you talk to is a lot of former CEOs of very large national retailers, some global retailers, about how they competed. And I, being in the time from 2006, I was still calling on a lot of regional, independent, and national retailers here in the Pacific Northwest. And yet I was living this not a dual life, but every major retailer I called on, Nordstrom's, REI, even Costco, what have you, they're all doing the same thing that you report on your book. And I had this moment because I did this whole little thing. I figured out that Amazon is a tech company. And what you talk about more this is what also there's a confluence of other things happening, but the timing was perfect. The fact that the retailers didn't have to compete with tech companies before.
Yeah, well, first I want to address that the other companies were doing similar things. In some respects, yes. And I spoke to one of the former heads of Walmart US about that. He said, yeah, but we were doing it fairly. We didn't have a giant cloud computing arm subsidizing all of the undercutting
100%.
we're doing. And Amazon was doing it in retail, but also in every industry that they're in, right? It's just there's never been a company like this since Standard Oil, I would say.
Yeah, I love your Standard Oil, and you talk a lot. I thank you. I'm smarter for reading the book. I didn't realize, I joke
a
about
lot of similarities.
A lot of similarities. What am I, a Rockefeller? I would say, and nobody gets my joke, but
John D. Rockefeller, Maurice B. Clark, and Samuel Andrews started an oil refining business in Cleveland, Ohio. Standard Oil Company and Trust. Standard Oil controlled 91% of U.S. oil productions and 85% of the final sales.
But I'm glad you brought up I'm glad you brought up other CEOs, because you're right. They didn't have the luxury of being treated like a tech stock. I spoke to Mickey Drexler from J. Crew and Gap, the CEO of Linens and Things in the 1990s and early 2000s. I spoke to a lot of these guys because they were my sources back when I covered retail. And I just went to them and said, Glenn Riggio, the CEO of Barnes & Noble, I went to them and said, tell me what it was like to go head to head with the young Jeff Bezos. And what was fascinating to me is I expected them all to be like, oh, he came onto the scene. We were super dismissive. We didn't think e-commerce had legs. None of them said that. They said he came onto the scene. This was really disruptive, and we knew we had to be there. But there was a huge problem. They didn't have the shareholder base that Jeff had cultivated. Jeff convinced Wall Street that they would never have to, not never, but they wouldn't have profits for years. And that would be okay, that he would be rewarded based on growth. So Amazon was able to reinvest all of its money back into the company, fund future initiatives, expand beyond books, expand beyond toys, expand beyond electronics, stand up a whole cloud computing company, stand up a devices business, all these things, because they didn't have to manage Wall Street. And then I spoke to the CEO of Linens and Things. I said, why were you so late to e-commerce? And he said, my board wouldn't give me the money.
Yeah.
He said, I was being managed quarter to quarter. And if we missed one quarter of earnings, that could mean I'm out of a job. If we missed several quarters or years like Amazon did, the company would be bankrupt. So he wanted $100 million to fund logistics for e-commerce for Linens and Things. And his board laughed him out of the room and said, you could have 25 million. So no one could catch up. And it was kind of brilliant on Jeff's part.
It was unfair. It's unfair because Wall Street was treating Jeff as a tech company, which at the time, that was the thing. You get a bazillion users for free and then you monetize it then. He wasn't being judged or valued. Yeah, you're right. It was unfair. It was brilliant, and it was unfair to all the retailers in a lot of ways because you're right. They couldn't get the monies.
And then what did you say? Some of them couldn't get the money. So then they had to even outsource it to Amazon to do it for them and pay Amazon this giant cut of fees. Toys R Us did this. Borders did this. Target did this. And I spoke to someone very senior at Amazon at the time. I said, how did you figure out what to charge these companies to do that? And he said, oh, we went to this is kind of Amazon 101. He's like, oh, we would sleuth through their latest financial reports and see how much money they were losing on e-commerce doing it themselves. So for the case of Toys R Us, I think they were losing $85 million a year. And they're like, all right, we'll do it for you for $60 million. They just made up an arbitrary number slightly lower than what they were losing. And that was all profits for Amazon.
Guess what, everybody? It's magic time. That's right. Magic Mind, the world's first mental performance shot. mental performance elixir. Everybody knows this by now, okay? They're great. They're so great to the show. I take this stuff all the time. What is it? What you can see me if you're watching on the YouTube, you can see me take it, right? It just helps me mentally to focus, because as you can tell in my interviews, which I'm editing and whatever, but I'm all over the place. I need my Magic Mind, and I just shake this little shot up. I take the little bottle off right here. It tastes great, by the way, for cognition, for energy, for less stress, which I need. We all need less stress. You just take this little bad boy, and you get 15 in a pack, or you can get more in a pack. My 15 just showed up. How you doing? I'm listener. I'm drinking. Oh, it's so good. It's a little sweet. Got over 100,000 community people on Instagram for mental performance tips, life hacks, behind the scenes of Magic Mind. You can go to magicmind.com. You can check all this stuff. It's actually well sourced. It's the good stuff. There's no short takes. There's none of that garbage in there. I take this every single day with my coffee. Okay, I've said this every single time. They were with us, I don't know, a year ago, 2 years ago. Left us. I liked it so much. I take it every single morning, and I use my own money. Okay, I use my own money, but you don't have to use your own money. Well, you do, but we're going to give you a great deal. So you can go to magicmind.com/alwaysoff trial, and they'll send you 3 free bottles. How's free sound? Does free sound good? I think free sounds pretty good. So do that. Always off trial. Okay. Magicmind.com. Then you go, and once you're in it, and by the way, we have listeners. I have heard from the Faithful 48 and others. We got people who are doing Magic Mind. They are on the Magic Mind, and they love it just like I do. Okay. So people are taking advantage of this. And if you're already in, you got your free trial, always off trial, then you can go to the magicmind.com/alwaysoff20. Always off 20, and you can get 20% off order. Depends on how much you order and your subscription, but you can get almost up to 48% off total. Okay. Depending on the subscription you sign up for. Now I get 15 of them. They come. Okay. They come. I don't remember how long they come, but it's fantastic because I never run out. They know exactly when I need them. And I just go, I roll back here in the Manhunt studio to the fridge, and I get them. So go get it today. Magic Mind. It is the first world's mental performance shot. And I'm telling you, I'm so much more focused. It takes my coffee and elongates the caffeine and the focus. And I got an 8-tab situation. Okay. My Chrome tabs, if I get more than 8, I'm out of control. Not with Magic Mind. So try it out today. Okay. Just do it. Just use the code, people, please.
I'm Russ Derringer, CEO and founder of Stradibly. You're listening to Always Off Brand.
So, Dana, with your book, it's been really meaningful for us on this side of the equation, where we're interacting with Amazon and we understand Amazon, and your book really enlightens the consumer and those a high percentage of the 200 million Prime members that are out there that are not thinking about Amazon as this big juggernaut. And we have another kind of view of this. But when I first read this book, I thought, this is a really impactful book for like how we look at our business. So I bought this book for my executive leadership team and gave it to them to say, hey, when we're looking at Amazon as a retail partner, as a media partner, etc., like we need to understand more about Amazon as the machine that it is, so that we know how to steer our business to get to that next level, because there's no escaping Amazon. It's really just how you embrace it. So this is a great educational piece for those of us in the e-commerce industry.
I really appreciate that, Ash. Thank you for assigning homework to your leadership team.
Dana, this is just fantastic. One of this thing, whole start, one of the most famous quotes from old Jeffrey Bezos, just the young boy from the East Coast, traveled west. Was your story in the book about how this whole quote, which I've used in presentations and everybody is used, it's great, is your margin is our opportunity.
Which Amazon has fought tooth and nail and denied for years. So I was really happy to get the origin story in the book.
It's some
Yes.
juicy tea.
So in 2006, Amazon was not the Amazon we know today. It was a $19 billion company, not small, but not $2 trillion, right? And it was mostly a bookseller and it was a retailer only. They were standing up AWS, but it was still just a retailer. But back in that period, people never thought that women would buy their clothes on Amazon. It was considered down market. Like no one would deign to buy her clothes there. And there's this big retail gala that one of my sources throws, where all of the big apparel CEOs go every year. It's people, like the CEOs of Saks Fifth Avenue and Nordstrom and Neiman Marcus. And all of these CEOs really came up the ranks together. It's a very clubby crew. And that year in walks this balding guy that is not like the others. And people turn around and they see Jeff Bezos walk in and everyone's sort of like, what's he doing here? What's the bookseller doing here, right? A little bit condescending. And one of my sources actually bumps into Jeff at the bar. My source was the CEO of a company called Dress Barn, which also had a brand called Lane Bryant. You probably remember them. They were like strip mall stores.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And he says to Jeff, what are you doing here? And Jeff turns around to him and sort of deadpans, well, your margin is my opportunity, which raised my source's eyebrows. And it was very honest, right? Because if you look at what Amazon did, very soon after that, they bought Shopbop and they did make a real big push into apparel. And I tell that story in the book because I think it just speaks to Jeff's broader mindset. It was never just about books. It was never just about retail. And there's another scene in the book where he tells his deputies that we need to be everywhere that the consumer touches. What do consumers do? Yes, they shop for paper towels once a week, twice a month. But they're listening to music, they're watching TV, they are reading books, they are, they're going to the doctor's office. They're doing all these things and we need to be everywhere. And he calls it this daily habit. And that's what Amazon's done. And along the way, they've stolen everyone's market share. That was their opportunity.
And if you don't know retail, by the way, kids, apparel's got real good margins. It did. It used to, and that day it had really good margin. Oh my God. Yeah. So it came out of, that's where he kind of broke in, and that has led to all kinds of industries and all kinds of things. But you mentioned,
yeah, go ahead. The biggest apparel maker, right? Or by sales, they are the biggest, or they were like flirting with it with Walmart.
Yeah. Amazon. Now Temu and Shein's coming in, and there's a lot of, on that basis, they have probably more of a competitive threat than they've had in years in some regard.
I would agree.
Ash, you mentioned these sources, and God, I just can't imagine. I mean, I talk a lot, Dana, but talking to 600 people.
Going from Wall Street Journal reporting to writing this book and compiling 600 people that you talk to and in all different levels and in Amazon, outside of Amazon, did you find that sources were very forthcoming and more or less willing to speak to you on or off the record, like more so than the Wall Street Journal reporting that you had done? Or was it a little bit tougher because it was going to be a published book?
It actually was easier. Part of it was that by the time I wrote the book, I was like so sourced up and like well-known in this space. So I wasn't coming in cold, which is helpful. But people understood like the gravity of this being in a book, being on shelves, that this wasn't just going to be one copy of a newspaper on the newsstand for a day and it goes away. Like this was like a permanent, really, what's the word for it? Like a permanent legacy of what this company stands for. And part of that was me getting a lot of documents. I had so many internal emails that I used for this that I was able to obtain, financial reports and stuff. And I had an email trail of who was on these emails, who was named in them. And I went to every single person named in one of these emails and said, I might be mentioning you in this book. You should tell me your side, right? So that I was able to like reverse engineer who I should speak to and tell them what I had. And that often creates an impetus to talk to a reporter because you want to tell your side of the story. So that was part of it too. And then beyond just the Amazon employees, I spoke to a lot of their competitors. I spoke to tons of regulators and government officials, Congress people, senators. And that was like a really interesting vein of reporting for me. A big part of the book is Amazon's comeuppance in Washington, D.C.
That's what I wanted to get
monopoly
at.
lawsuit. So like that's an important part of the story I had to source into as well.
Let's get into that. First of all,
Yeah.
I'm never telling you anything, Dana, because you will find every secret I ever had. Does your family do this? I mean, is this an issue for you? Mattioli, are they like, don't tell Dana when the family text string, are you left out of them?
No, but funny enough, my mother's a compliance officer in the hedge fund world, and my brother worked at a hedge fund, so she's very buttoned up, and we'd have Sunday dinner. We're Italian, and when I'd come home for Sunday dinner, she'd tell my brother, "Do not talk about work in front of Dana. Like, you guys cannot share information. Like, very much like no insider trading, which we obviously already know." I come from that sort of family where it's like nothing can be improper.
Oh my God. What did you guys talk about? You just talk about the weather and about everything else? That's hysterical. You know what? Wise mother. She knows what's going on.
She knows her stuff.
She didn't want to show up in print the next day.
She's never going to run afoul of the SEC, Diane Mattioli. I'll tell you that much.
Let's get into a huge, and you chronicle this in the book, the Lina Khan story, which is a big deal, and opinions, a lot of different opinions. I heard you the pivot again, Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway, and he's very outspoken on his opinion that they are a monopoly, they should be broken up. Talk about the whole that antitrust lawsuit that came out, and that shook the that shook the building of Amazon and all the tech companies.
I mean, this is the biggest monopoly lawsuit since Standard Oil. And it's this very much a full circle moment. The book actually opens up, not with Jeff Bezos or Amazon, with Lina for a reason. In 2017, she writes this seminal law review article, and she's this nobody, law school student from Yale. She's not a household name. And she says Amazon is a monopoly, and the ways that we are interpreting antitrust laws are wreaking havoc on our economy, and we're creating, digital Gilded Age giants, basically. And she says, we need to reinterpret antitrust law and go back to the Gilded Age interpretations of them. And companies like Amazon need to, be reckoned with. And this law review article goes viral. It's the first time that people and regulators and, anyone who reads this start equating Amazon with being a potential monopoly, not just this darling with a smile on the box, right?
They're like, I just get my toilet paper and my dog food. What's going on?
I was going to say, Lina's the first FTC chair to bring up any sort of antitrust big, put the spotlight on something like this, because previously it was just, kind of scams or, a lot of smaller cases, but she really put the spotlight on this. And it's a big deal. They're talking a lot about it right now in our current presidential election, because the millionaires, they're mad at her. But, a lot of the other political figures are like, well, this is a good thing. We want to support her in her cases.
Yeah, that's right. There's weird bedfellows on this one. And Lina basically says, antitrust law had moved to this interpretation of that. If anything, it creates low prices for consumers, that it's not really illegal. It's not anti-competitive. So for instance, if you don't pay to use Google as a consumer, so there's no problem with that. You don't pay to use Facebook as a consumer, can't be any problems there. And at the time that Lina was writing this article, Amazon was using predatory pricing, was undercutting the market on prices to steal share from its rivals. Cut to today, Lina Khan is the youngest chair of the Federal Trade Commission, the antitrust agency that oversees Amazon. And last year, she brought forward this historic lawsuit calling Amazon a monopoly and saying it should maybe be broken up. And the crux of the lawsuit is that, funny enough, the Amazon of 2023, when she was bringing forward the lawsuit, had raised prices on everyone because they had cemented their monopoly position. They had become the de facto place to shop online. 40% of everything sold online in the US is there. There's 200 million Prime members. And because it's now in this monopoly position, it could make things more onerous. It could turn up the heat on its vendors, on its customers, because where else are you going to go? You're not going to go to Sears to sell your items. You're not going to go there to buy them. You're not going to go to Circuit City. You're not going to go to Linens and things. All of these retail bankruptcies, partly driven by Amazon, have created an environment where they have so much fewer competitors, and they're able to charge their third-party sellers more for the pleasure of selling there. So Lena's lawsuit says a decade ago, Amazon took 19 cents on every dollar a seller made in revenue on Amazon.com to it's 45 cents on the dollar. So these sellers have had to largely raise their prices, which is something that I'm sure everyone on this podcast knows about.
Yeah, we are vendors and sellers, and so
Yeah.
we figured that out. Weirdly, they've actually, if you're selling apparel and somewhat not really football apparel, they've actually lowered the cost of doing business in apparel because they're feeling a threat and competitive nature.
Timo and
With Timo and Shein. But yeah, there's, again, every situation is so different. The problem is, Dana, the conundrum, the torture inside of all of us is that they're really good at it. And if you look comparatively, they can do it faster and better. That's the problem. And the consumer, God bless us all. I raise my hand. We love cheap shit, Dana. We love good deals.
And no friction when it comes to buying those things. And you can even see it growing in the sense of like that tax, as you call it, in buying media. And because they own all the audience data. So you have 200 million Prime members, what they're shopping for, what's in their cart, what's saved for later, what they're engaging with. And now when it comes to streaming TV, or audio, what they're listening to with active Alexa and Echo Home devices, buying media and placements, they're the broker, they're the real estate agent of the property, and they have the audience data. And now they're I just saw that they signed Brian Williams to get into
the election coverage, right?
Yeah, live media and in the election coverage. So do you think that there's a ceiling? Like, I mean, where do we go from here?
Oh, wait, can I quote your book?
Yeah.
This is from employee number 8, Todd Nelson, employee number 8 of Amazon, feels similarly. And you were talking about employee number 1, how do you say that last name? Caffin. So yeah, he says, I am so grateful for all Amazon's given me and my experience there, but I think Amazon's bad for the world right now. They have all the leverage.
That aged well.
That did age well.
That was fascinating to me. I went back to a lot of the early employees just to like kind of get their postmortem. And by and large, a lot of them said, this company made me very wealthy. Imagine if you're employee number 8, you got a lot of stock options at like not much, that were very cheap at the time. But almost all of them told me that they felt some guilt about creating a monster, that this had unintended consequences that they did not foresee back in the early 2000s.
If you're in the space, right? We are the lovable Amazon nerds. You got to read this book, and you have to have your senior leadership, and you have to have anybody I mean, your family members anyway, who love Amazon, but I don't know. It sobers the idea of how they operate, how they think. Now, this is a personal opinion. I think Andrew, and I call him Andrew, Andy Jassy, the current CEO. I think he's a little nicer. I think the vibe there is just a little gentler. I don't think they're as, savage, I like to say, or as brutal as they once were. I saw this living here in the Seattle area. I saw this with Microsoft back in the early days. The employees, were sleeping in the office. There was just a hardcore, and you've seen that lessen a little bit. So, but yes, everybody out there, don't be crazy. The Everything War, it's available everywhere. And
even Amazon.
Available on Amazon.
Yeah, even on Amazon. It's got great reviews, by the way. That's a great point. Great point, Ash. All right. Okay. So I think, again, with the antitrust, whatever, personal opinion, I think it's going to be tough. I got to tell you, I think it's going to be a rough one. I am all something needs to be accountable. They need to, I don't know if they need to be broken up, because I was educated by your Standard Oil story. When they broke them up, they did better than before.
Yeah, I mean, their market value went through the roof after that.
So this concerns me. They roll off AWS. Now they've got Amazon supply chain. They've got, I mean, if you have not imported direct import, their direct import is honestly phenomenal. The way they move goods from China to here, it's extraordinary, and they're really good at it. So this worries me. What is the best thing for not only the competitors in the industry, but also the consumers? But I believe Europe is going to be, at the end of the day, their reasonable common sense and somewhat levity of trying to make it fair for everybody we're going to be forced to swallow that here. What do you think, Dana?
Well, it's really interesting to me. I spoke with the EU commissioner. Her name's Margrethe Vestager for my book. And when she came onto the scene, she was like universally feared by Amazon and Google and Facebook and Apple, because this is before Lena. This is before people started using Monopoly to talk about these companies. She started calling BS on all of them immediately. And she started hitting them all with these $1 billion of fines and saying that they're not competing fairly. And she told me, when I was speaking to her for the book, she told me back then, people in DC called her that crazy lady. Like, what are you doing going after our national treasures? Like, you're just, it's sour grapes because they're not homegrown. And so she has like a bit of vindication now that people like Lena Khan and John Cantor at the DOJ have come onto the scene that are sort of kindred spirits to her. And you know, there's been a criticism of the U.S. that we've been late to policing our own giants, that we turned a blind eye for a really long time. So I think, you know, watching from her perch now, seeing that, you know, the DOJ and the FTC have now sued all 4 of those very same companies years later, but they got to the same realization is probably pretty interesting for her.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only hope I have, because we just like money too much, and it's a billionocracy, and the billionaires run it. And I just can't see them breaking that up. But that's a very jaded, skeptical view, so you're welcome. And you know what? The other thing, I'll just end here. In some cases, and I raise my hand this, I think the U.S. consumer likes a monopoly in many ways. I think we love it because we don't have to think, because I'm lazy, because I just don't care. I just want what I want. I want it the best deal.
That was Robert Bork's whole argument. He said, with the consumer welfare standard, if a company could do things for cheaper and more efficient, like, what's the problem?
Yeah. And apparel overall, if you look at food costs and everything else, if you look over the last 20 years, it's actually cheaper, right? We could get in a whole discussion about the 80s and China and the whole 9 yards. All right. Fantastic. I love it. Oh, God. Okay. Running up against time a little bit. We got a game show for you to play. I mean, my God, you can't. I mean, what show? You're on CNN, you're on MSN, you're on all these fancy places, but who has you play a game show?
No one's made me play a game show yet. No.
Welcome back. It's the game show sweeping the world. Apparently it hasn't swept your world yet, but it will. It's called What's That Keyword, coming up next.
This is Julie Spear from Acadia, and you're listening to Always Off Brand.
Finally, a game show nerdier than an Excel V lookup. It's time for What's That Keyword? Here's your host, Haley on the news.
All right. Well, Amazon probably holds the monopoly on all the search terms too. So let's go ahead and play our keyword game. All right, Dana, you're new here. Ash, you're a seasoned veteran. But here we go. I am going to give you a product that is sold on Amazon.com. You have to guess the keyword or keyword phrase that has converted. So, Dana, what did the customer type in to buy this product? Okay. That's
why am I weirdly nervous about this?
All right. All right. Your first product is a black and white striped suit jacket.
Ooh, say that again for
Zebra
me.
jacket?
Black and white stripes, suit jacket, like a blazer.
I'm going to say
white stripes.
Zebra jacket. I don't know if that's even a
Okay,
search
zebra
term.
jacket. That's wrong. But Scott, Ash.
I'm going to go with zoot suit.
Ooh, yeah, I picture that as like a spandex onesie, but cool.
No.
Scott?
I'm going to say Zoolander.
Oh, nope. All right. I was looking for Beetlejuice costume.
Oh, yes.
It's coming to be Halloween soon. It's it's kind of popular right now. The whole
I feel like Summer would have got that because
Summer probably would have gotten that.
Yeah. God dang it, Summer.
She's gonna listen to this and be really disappointed.
She doesn't listen.
Did I mention her she's on vacation? I'm not bitter. She doesn't listen.
No. All right. Your next product. Now, this one might be a little easier. Okay. I'm looking at the game of operation. The game of operation. Good old Milton Bradley.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
Oh, that game? That's the product?
The game. Yeah, Scott. The game operation. That is your product.
Oh, wow. Anyone? Dana?
I
Ash?
think you go first. I've never bought a keyword, so I want to hear from the class first.
You've typed in things on Amazon to search.
I guess maybe doctor board game.
Okay. All right. No. Ash, Scott.
Oh my God, Ash, you got anything? I'm dying over here. I'm dying over here.
I would go either like vintage game or like game, like part of me just is like, oh, it's one of those games that just like gave us anxiety as kids.
Halloween.
All right, so what's your guess, Ash?
Oh yeah.
I don't think you gave me like a
vintage 90s games.
Okay, they still make the game. Cool. Scott?
Halloween boredom.
Ooh. Okay, you're a little late with the Halloween there.
Thank you.
Scotty-O. All right, I was looking for surgery game. Surgery game.
I would give that to Dana. She was pretty damn close.
Yeah.
If Summer were here, she would want her to have like a half a point.
Half a point, yes.
But,
Summer's not here. I don't know.
Hey, Dana, think of the flexing you do at the Wall Street Journal now. Hey, you've won a game, a illustrious game show. Unbelievable.
Half a point wins here. All right, everybody. Thanks for playing another game of What's That Keyword? We'll be back in just a digital second with the news.
Hi, this is Mike Black, Chief Marketing Officer at Profitero, and you're listening to Always Off Brand.
Well, that's all been fun and games, but it's that time, the time America has been waiting for. It's time for the news.
All right, so here we are again, just riding this Amazon train today. All right, let me just give a little bit of information here so we can kind of tie the story in, because it's just fascinating how all of these things are so wildly connected. We all know what Netflix is. Remember how Netflix started? It was like a mail order DVD. You told them what DVDs you want. They mailed it to you. You got it for like 10 days. You mailed it back. Then it became this online streaming, and now it's evolved into only online streaming. Well, Amazon AWS actually is the platform that operates Netflix. So Netflix has dependency on Amazon. Now, when we go back, I don't know, what year did Redbox come out? Do we even know? I should have researched this. I can't remember either. I mean, it was like the earlier 2000s, right?
Yeah, I would guess around the early 2000s.
Have any of y'all walked by an old Redbox? The drugstore, a Walmart, a Target. Have anybody? Yeah. Okay, there's more than 24,000 Redbox units that have essentially been abandoned at a lot of these retailers. Like, why is it still there? The company went bankrupt. Nobody orders Redbox anymore. I don't even think these units work. If you went up and tried to work one, I don't know. They're not going to work. The Wall Street Journal reported recently.
Oh, Wall Street Journal. I don't know. Do we have anybody on the show?
I don't know. Here we go. See, I'm trying to link all this together today.
Nice job out of you.
Oh, I had a small job today, so I'm trying to do it well, Scott.
Bravo, Haley.
All right. So the Wall Street Journal reported that many of these Redbox units actually require a licensed electrician to remove them. Now, where the disconnect is who pays for this electrician? Redbox is bankrupt. They're gone. They have no more representatives. They do not exist anymore. So then the responsibility falls on the retailer, the gas station, wherever this Redbox unit is located. Okay. So we know that it takes an electrician to disconnect it. It weighs more than 1,000 pounds, depending on how many DVDs are still in the unit.
Oh my God.
And they're still sucking the electricity from the buildings.
Oh my God.
So they are mooching these electricities. So CVS has said it's the worst freeloader that they've ever had. Walgreens says that it's spending over $185,000 a month across 3,800 stores just to power these red box kiosks. And they do nothing. They don't work anymore, but they still have electricity. They still take up space, and they're just a pain in the ass.
Oh my God. Who knew the waste? We're concerned about a lot of other things in the environment, but I didn't know the red boxes were part of it.
And here we go. It all ties back into how Amazon sort of holds this monopoly, and they're probably the biggest reason why Redbox is out of business.
All right, Haley, that is a fascinating story. Redbox. Good Lord, somebody bail this out. It's probably cheaper to hire the electricians.
All right, everybody. That was excellent. Ash, Dana, thank you guys so much for joining Scott and I. And we are going to come back in just a second with the best, most favoritist part of the whole show and Summer's favorite part, the wrap up.
I just love how you do that every time.
My name is Destiny Washawn. I am CEO of Better AMS, and you are listening to the Always Off-Brand podcast.
Holy smokes. We all know, working on the Amazon side, how hard it is to work with them and how they call all the shots. And, I really think Dana was able to uncover and really shine light on all of the things that they have just steamrolled, taken over, stomped. I don't know what you want to call it, Scott, but Amazon, they're not going anywhere. They are the kings of the sandbox. And she really, called out a lot of things that I think a lot of people maybe didn't understand or know. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and put it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you can have all these dots. Like, she connects the dots in a really, really great way.
Yeah, you have all these themes and threads of all the tech they stole, then all the industry they stole, all the things they looked at and used their information and first-party data as an advantage. I mean,
and IP, when it comes to designs and products and
I feel, is it my dirty little, like when I go to Chick-fil-A and I enjoy a chicken sandwich, but I kind of feel dirty? Is it like my dirty little pleasure doing Amazon stuff? I mean, I'm conflicted by this. I need therapy on this, you guys. Ash?
It depends on how you use the knowledge. Like, I look at this truly as like an educational piece where we can use this information to even give us a different perspective when we're innovating product. And when we're creating new products, and it's like just giving it that extra angle of thought to take into consideration of future proofing or Amazon proofing your business and being able to grow and utilizing, this knowledge to grow.
Yeah.
Because you need it.
And what's the key, Ash, to navigating all of this is what about the people?
Oh, people matter. You need the relationships.
Because people matter. And you're listening to Always
Off-Brand. Darn. I messed it up.
We got to go back to rehearsal. And you're listening to Always
Off-Brand.
All right. Like, share. Thanks, Ash, for coming on. You've been fantastic. I appreciate you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody
have a great weekend.
All right. Bye-bye.
Toodaloo.
Bye.
Hey there, this is Haley from Quickfire, and they want me to read this so you know what this podcast is part of and how to find out more if you want. Always Off-Brand is a production of Quickfire LLC and a part of the Learn and Laugh series on the Quickfire Podcast Network. For more information, go to quickfirenow.com. Have a good one, and thanks for listening.